The world's biggest chocolate chip cookie weighed 40,000 pounds and had a diameter of 101 feet. It was created in 2003 by the Michaelah Baking Company in Flat Rock, North Carolina. Today, I'm going to be demonstrating to you guys how to make cookies at high altitude. First off, who doesn't love a warm, gooey cookie? But who has struggled to make this perfect cookie at the altitude that we live at? Today, I'm going to demonstrate you how to make this perfect cookie. I have always loved to bake since I was a little girl. I grew up in North Carolina though, and so high altitude was not something we had to combat with. You just made your cookies and went on your way. So remember the first time making cookies up here, I made them and they were the flattest things I've ever made in my life, and they didn't taste very good. So I did some research and figured out what I needed to do to my recipe to change it to get the perfect chocolate chip cookie, and I'm going to share that with you today. High altitude baking can be tricky, but wonderful baking scientists have figured out what changes to the recipe need to be made in order to have a tasty cookie at high altitude. I'm going to share with you the ingredients and what quantities, along with a few tips and tricks that I do to make the perfect cookies. This recipe is adapted from Nestle Toll House's chocolate chip cookie recipe, and it makes about approximately 5 dozen cookies. So you're going to need 2 separate bowls. In your first bowl, you're going to do all your dry ingredients. I have already mixed some stuff for time's sake. So in this bowl, we have 2.5 cups of flour. This is increased from 2.25 cups of flour. You do this to increase the structural integrity of the cookie. At high altitude, things rise a little bit faster, so this can make the cell walls burst. So adding just a touch more flour gives the cookie, makes it just a little bit stronger. One trick I like to do with my flour is I like to scoop it into the measuring cup with a spoon, not scoop the measuring cup into the flour, because this compacts the flour and actually gives you more flour than you need. We also have a teaspoon of baking soda, which is a leavener. This is going to make your cookie soft and fluffy. And then you have a teaspoon of salt, which is going to actually enhance the sweetness of your cookie, not make it salty, and a lot of people don't know that either. So I have mixed all of these in this bowl and then stirred it up. So in your second bowl, you're going to need 1 cup or 2 sticks of softened butter, and make sure it's real butter, not margarine. Real butter is much better. And when I say soft, you want to be able to hold the butter and kind of squish it with your fingers, and it just leaves a little indentation. Don't ever microwave your butter, because this also will mess with the structure, the integrity of your cookies. You have 2/3 cups of sugar and 2/3 cups of brown sugar, and I've already started mixing this because you should mix it for about 3 minutes. And what the mixing of the sugar into the butter does is creates little air pockets in your butter, and this makes you have a nice fluffy cookie. If you have cold butter, the sugar can't really grind into that butter, and so you're going to have less fluffy cookies, which some people like less fluffy cookies. I do not. So I've taken my butter, my sugar, and my brown sugar, and I mixed it for about 3 minutes. Just mixing it around like this. After you have your butter and your sugar completely mixed, this is what it should look like. And then you want to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Real vanilla is preferable if you have it on hand. My vanilla is actually homemade. It's something my aunt loves to do, and she gave me a bottle of it. This is going to make the cookie taste better and enhance the flavor of the other ingredients in the cookies. I'm going to add that and mix. And then you are going to add your 2 eggs. You want to make sure your eggs are room temperature. And you want, every time you add an egg, you want to make sure it's completely incorporated before you move on to the addition of another egg. Eggs and butter are like oil and water. That's how you should think about it. You're adding something mostly fat, which is your butter and sugar mixture, to something mostly water, which is your egg. And so you need to make sure you incorporate it completely before you move on. And to make sure they're completely incorporated, you need an emulsifier, which is going to be your sugar in this case. So add 1 egg at a time. considered to be completely incorporated. I'm going to add my second egg. And then you're just going to add your flour mixture to your butter, sugar, egg mixture. And you just want to do it a little bit at a time. And completely incorporate it. I do mine in about 2 batches. So one interesting thing about the high altitude recipe is they tell you to add 2 teaspoons of water, and this is because there's not as much moisture in the air, so you need to add a little bit more moisture to your batter. So this is my 2 teaspoons of water, and this is what my batter looks like before I add the water. It's a little bit grainy and not everything will incorporate. So there's my 2 teaspoons of water. And then lastly is your 2 cups of chocolate chips. And you can also add nuts at this point if you would like. I don't normally add nuts to my chocolate chip cookies. And that's it. That's how you make chocolate chip cookies at high altitude. You drop them on a pan and bake them for about 8 to 10 minutes at 350 degrees. So in conclusion, you guys have learned today how to make chocolate chip cookies at high altitude. Thank you.